Hi everyone, this is Anuradha, and this is the first time that I am officially going live, and I'm really nervous and excited. But in any case, I'm doing this for all the people who received sourdough starter from me in the mail. You should be receiving it right now. If you haven't received it a few hours ago, I've been checking the tracking numbers, and all of you should have received it by today. So I'm really excited to do a 3-day series on what to do with the starter. I think I really want my starter to become a really good friend, and I really believe in the integrity of this particular starter because it has never failed me, and I'm sure it's going to become a really good and loyal friend to you in your sourdough bread making foray. Anyway, so I was just reflecting a little bit about today being Easter Monday, and oh, by the way, welcome to our little apartment. This weekend would have been the weekend that we would have hosted the Living Name Retreat with Sachinandan Maharaj here in New Vrindavan. And everyone would have left yesterday on Sunday, probably really ecstatic and happy, about the weekend. And today would have been the day that we would have all been regrouping and talking about the retreat, and a lot of excitement and reviewing. And my home would have also been the headquarters for the support team. So I really was thinking about that today, about how this weekend would have been. I was trying to think about other things that are happening in different parts of the world. Oh yes, the Rath Yatra, the Festival of Chariots in Durban. I'm not sure what else happens on Easter weekend in different parts of the world. Anyway, okay, so let's get down to business. So you would have received your sourdough culture in a 2-ounce jar like this. And there's about 2 generous tablespoons of culture. Now, my culture is so alive and so kind of ready to grow. I just made a mock culture like this from my large culture jar. This is my culture jar here. It's really a wonderful jar. It has a nice airtight lid, ceramic, and here it is. Beautiful culture. And I've just taken it out of the fridge, and literally about a half an hour ago I scooped out some into this. And what's amazing is that just because it hit room temperature, this culture is starting to grow. So if you look here, you're able to see a lot of bubbles developing. Now, this is not necessarily going to happen to your culture. So when you get your culture in the mail, just go ahead and throw it into the fridge for a little while. Let it cool down. It might have been growing a little bit in the mail. I'm not really sure in terms of the weather, etc. If it was warm, it probably started growing. So it should be a little bit springy, if it comes to you like that. So I have no doubt in my mind that it is a strong, healthy culture that you're getting. So, okay, so then you get the culture, and what you're going to do is you're going to use a mason jar like this. I like using the wide mouth jar because it just really makes it really easy to clean and to mix as well. And the typical measurement that I use to feed my culture. So this culture here now is full of bacteria, and what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to feed this culture. That's how a starter remains alive. You're going to have to feed it with just flour and water, which is basically the way you make a starter. And I tried once to make a starter. I wasn't really successful, but the typical way of making it is that you mix water and flour, and you just kind of set it out on your counter, and there's just bacteria, floating wild bacteria that's just floating in the air. And the flour and the water mixture just catches that bacteria, and it takes, you know, anywhere up to 6-7 days to ferment and for the bacteria to start eating the flour and becoming then a culture. But like I said, I tried it once years ago, it didn't work, and then I got this amazing culture from my friend about 2 years ago, and I have been using this culture, and I have shared this culture several times over. Okay, so when you get your culture, put it into the fridge, take it out a couple hours later, get a wide mouth jar. I don't necessarily use a see-through mason jar anymore. I just use my regular ceramic jar because I kind of am more familiar with the culturing process. And then the typical measurement that I use is a 1/2 cup of flour to a 1/4 cup of water. And go ahead and spoon your culture completely out of your 2-ounce bottle into the larger bottle. It should come out fairly easily. Try to get all of it out, as much of it as possible. And then go ahead and put in your flour. Making a little bit of a mess here. Okay, so I just put in my flour. My culture is inside here. Throw in the water. So it's basically 2 parts flour and 1 part water. Okay, so just give it a nice mix. I love using a spatula. Okay, so a good mix like this. Try to get all of that flour mixed up. I love a spatula because you can kind of clean the jar as you stir. And have so many spatulas, different sizes. Okay, now this is pretty good. And the consistency is pretty much the same consistency as the original starter, yeah? That you got. Like a wet bread dough. And some recipes call for a little bit of a more watery culture, but I find that this is just really nice and manageable, and it works just fine. So 1/2 cup of flour to a 1/4 cup of water. Yeah, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and cover it lightly and let it sit. Now what I do is I usually let it sit in my oven so that there's no draft or any bugs or anything like that. So I just kind of loosely cover it and I place it in my oven. Now you're getting your starter for the first time, and the starter that you're getting is my starter. It's a starter that I have fed over the last 2 years, and it's familiar with the bacteria here in the West Virginia Appalachian country, and it's used to those particular bacteria. So you're gonna have to make my culture your culture, and it's gonna take a couple of different feeds, which is why I say that if you start today, then by Wednesday, I can imagine that you will be ready to make your bread. I suggest that you feed your culture today and then tomorrow, and then we start making bread maybe tomorrow afternoon. It'll be ready for a Wednesday bake. All right. Important is that you have to get your culture acclimated to the bacteria in your house. So I highly recommend, strongly recommend, that you feed your culture twice. For those enthusiasts, you can go ahead and look at my long set of notes and try to follow this along and see if you can just go ahead and make bread. But yeah, if some of you can't get through this set of instructions that I included in your in your package for the sourdough starter. I'll be doing another video tomorrow for the second part of the sourdough culture. So just to troubleshoot a little bit, my culture is so hardy. I don't typically feed it all the time. I only feed it the morning that I plan to make bread. So sometimes it just stays in my fridge for months. I go away for months. My husband and I went to India for 3 months, or 3.5 months, came back, and the culture was hard, and I just had to tend to it. You know, I put some water in it, left it out, you know, in my stove, and it softened. And then I fed it the next day. I kind of, you know, try to break through it a little bit. But there's different ways of troubleshooting. So it's a very hardy culture. So that's one thing that could happen, is that your culture could get really hard and you have to try to revive it. The second thing is that it could develop like a furry white mold. You know, some kind of, not like a horrible mold, just like a little furry white mold. And then what I would do is I would just really just scrape off the top, making sure I just scrape the sides off as well, discard that, and then give my culture a good feed, which means that I will add 1/2 cup of flour, 1/4 cup of water, and then see how it responds. Another thing that could go wrong is that you could get like a little bit of a brown or a kind of a grayish layer on the top, and it can kind of perspire or sweat a little bit. So just go ahead and, you know, drain out that little bit of water and just also scrape out the top, feed it, and then you should be able to have a healthy culture. So those are some of the things that could go wrong with your sourdough culture. Yeah, so for the most part, it's pretty hardy. So then once you have this and you set it in your oven, you just have to wait. What I suggest is kind of, you know, leveling it to the bottom and then just making a little mark. You know, sometimes I say put a rubber band, which is very easy then, or just make a little mark of where that amount is, the kind of quantity of culture that you have, and just forget about it. And of course, you know, when I first got my culture, I was so eager. I was looking at it every 15 minutes. And my trick is that I look at the bottom and I look to see if there are bubbles. And sometimes you'll start to see really small bubbles develop, and it's just so satisfying. It's just so wonderful. So I wait for those bubbles to come. Now, it can take anywhere from 2 or 3 hours to overnight for your culture to actually acclimate to your house and to the bacteria in your home, and to actually grow and make friends with the bacteria in your home. So I suggest on your first feeding to just be really patient and have faith in your culture. So the test is that this should rise approximately double that quantity. Okay, you should see a lot of bubbles, a lot of big healthy bubbles. And then what you do is you take a little bit in a spoon, just kind of spoon it out, and drop a little spoonful in a glass of water. And if it sinks to the bottom, it means that it's, you know, not quite there in terms of the bacteria to have fully enveloped the amount of flour. And if it kind of floats, it means that it's really light and the bacteria is swimming in the water and staying afloat. And that's when you know you have a really healthy culture. Okay, so what else did I want to say to you? Oh yeah, very interesting. Why you should have sourdough culture in your home. I've had instant yeast in my cupboard for months. And of course, during this virus, I am just scouring the internet, you know, just checking out recipes and kind of obsessing over some recipes and then trying out recipes. And something that I've been obsessing about recently is donuts. I mean, I never obsess about donuts. I don't even know why it's just coming into my kind of ether, you know? And so I've been obsessing about donuts. So I have all the ingredients for donuts, really fantastic flour. I have my really good friend from down under, Chinchia, gave me her, foolproof recipe. She's from Australia, and I was just so excited to try to make donuts because, I made it with her. I was there when she made it, and of course I enjoyed it. So I try to make donuts, and donuts require instant yeast. Okay, so I used first-class flour. I used our, milk from our protected cows, my homemade yogurt, just all these great ingredients, and I put the instant yeast, and I let it sit all night. Woke up in the morning, nothing. It felt the same. It did not rise. It did not take. I haven't used yeast in years. Okay, so it did not take at all. I was really disappointed. So here I am with this expensive dough, because I used 4 cups, and 4 and a half cups of flour, and a cup and a half of milk, or anyway, I don't remember the recipe, but this expensive dough, and I had no idea how to resuscitate it, put more yeast, and water in, or anyway, I didn't even want to troubleshoot. So I had already, got some sourdough bread baking. So what I did was, my leftover sourdough culture, I just went ahead and used that, the discarded one. I just went ahead and kind of dimpled that into the so-called donut dough. Now, what I realized that I'd done incorrectly was that I had followed the Australian cup measurements, which is different from the American cup measurements. So anyway, I have to try to figure that out. So I just went ahead and kind of dimpled my sourdough starter in and let it sit for an entire day and night. And the next morning, that donut dough had completely cultured. It was amazing. There was bubbles and holes all over. It was absolutely incredible. My sourdough culture kind of ate through the entire thing, and it was amazing. So what I decided to do was to make sourdough dinner roll. So I just kind of rolled it out like a big pizza, and then I cut, using this actually, I just kind of, cut pieces, and I baked it. And I baked it with a little bit of steam in the oven at 400 or something like that for about 20 minutes. And this is what I got. And as you can see, oops, it has the bubbles that you would get in a sourdough bread. Of course, the inside is just like a bread. It doesn't have that kind of sourdough kind of look, which is called open crumb, but it was incredible. It was absolutely delicious, and I'm kind of curious now what it would be like for me to do the same recipe with the milk and the yogurt, etc., using sourdough starter, and baking it like a donut or deep frying it. Anyway, that's up to the donut queens out there. You know who you are. Anyway, that very same day, I made sourdough bread. And as you can see, this is the fast method that I'm going to be teaching you that is in your paper. But it has beautiful, what's called open crumb here. A gorgeous crust, very crusty and nice and hard. So this was from this particular batch. So one thing that I just remembered is that now after you get your sourdough and your culture is all beautiful and bubbly, when you are about to feed it the second time, because that's what you're going to do, right? You're going to feed it twice over a period of 24 hours or 18 hours or whatever. You will, when this is all nice and bubbly, you will take out half of it and put it into another jar, and then you will feed the half that's still in this jar. There's like a process of discarding and adding, discarding and adding. And what I do with the discarded amount is that I save it, and then I put it into some kind of dough that I make crackers or something, whatever. Anyway, that's for another video. So I hope this was explanatory enough. Anyway, like I said, you have your paper. So the first step is when you get it, put it into the fridge, a couple hours, take it out, follow the recipe for feeding the culture. Wait for about, look at it, every 15 minutes if you wish, but 6 or 7 hours, it should be great. After 6 or 7 hours, you can just stick it in your fridge, right? Wake up the next morning, which is tomorrow, discard half of it and then feed half of it, and then follow the same process. So tomorrow I'll come online at around this time and I will teach you the next step of getting your dough ready and how to actually prepare the dough to get it ready to be baked on Wednesday. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I was clear enough. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section. I'm gonna go ahead and share this on my Anurada page as well. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And if there are any of you who still want sourdough culture sent to you and you're in America, I'm happy to do so. I'll be sending it priority, so just let me know. I'm gonna go ahead and feed my culture right now so that I can have some more ready for you when you ask for it. Okay, so let me know what you think. Take care. This is Anurada from Healing the Heart with Anurada. Bye-bye.